They are.
So you had a chance to come up with some ideas for your assigned topic. What we're going to do, so you want to keep book out because we're going to be probably taking a look at some page numbers and also have your note sheet out. We're basically just going to run through, put down some details, and then at least try to get some more overall significance as to why some things about Clarice, rainwater, etc. could be significant to the book. One of the main elements that we're going to be looking for is not only maybe some symbolic meanings, but some other literary stuff that there's quite a bit going on within the course of the book, and it's going to develop. There's a lot of allusions that are going to be happening. Remember, allusions are references to well-known things. So it could be historical elements, could be historical text. Part 2, there's going to be some biblical allusions that are going to be happening, and that's going to happen in Part 3 as well. There's also certainly going to be some elements with irony that we're going to take at. Rainwater could be one of those things. Ben and George taking a look at history of firemen and some of the rules and things, the history that the people associate with them. There could be some ironic twist to those things. So the symbolism, the illusion, the irony, those are going to be like the main elements that we're looking at. We'll certainly start with the groups that we're looking at each of these things. But if you have other details that you remember or things that carry over to crossover with the elements that you were looking at, we can certainly include those things as well. So, gentlemen in the back, what were some things with Clarice's family that would jump out to us? Certainly we know they're different, unusual compared to the normal people in society, quote unquote normal, but what really separates them?
They're all happy, smiling, and talking to each other instead of being in their own
world. Clarice puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that they do like to talk. What, according to her, and this isn't just you folks, what's missing on houses that used to be around that the modern current homes at this time in the 2300s don't have? Windows. You can still see there aren't porches. The whole idea of front porches, back porches, those things don't really seem to be around anymore. Porches are missing. What they like to do is sit around and talk, and porches, you think about it for a house within a neighborhood, that's when people would actually get to see one another. It might be a hot July day, you sit out on your porch, try to stay cool a little bit. So you have one family out, neighbors are out next door, then you start talking to neighbors, maybe even you sort of get together, have some kind of like block neighborhood party, picnic, barbecue, whatever the case may be. Kids would be playing capture the flag or release or something at night. You would do things together, interact. If you don't have porches, if you don't have a reason to be outside, that interaction is there. So they certainly crave interaction with other people. Anyone remember what what Clarice likes to do? One part about going to school that she does like. She doesn't tend to like the people who go there. They're too violent. She doesn't like the things that they talk about, but there's a way that she gets to school. I don't take a bus, but she takes the subway. And what does she do on the subway? Some of you would do this if you're riding a bus. She listens and she watches. She's a people watcher. She's the person who'd be sitting at the food court at Ross Park Mall just watching people go by and start to go, oh, there's Jillian. She looks like someone who, fill in the blank. There's Luke. Oh, Adam says you look like a bird, by the way. There's Tommy. He looks like, that's what he said. He looks like that kind of guy. She would kind of be a people watcher, so she likes to think, she likes to communicate, she likes to converse with other folks. Devin, where are they from originally? The family originates from Chicago. Do we have any idea where we are, city-wise? In the book, you don't know. You certainly get the sense that they're West Coast. So you're probably more somewhere Los Angeles kind of area within California. Important information about them being from Chicago is Guy learns this on page 57 57 is when Beatty comes over and visits him. So Beatty tells him that they are from Chicago. Beatty tells him that they have had their eye on them for quite some time. So he certainly knows about Clarice and the family. Beatty certainly knows about the death of Clarice. When it came to your study guide, there was a question about foreshadowing. One of the elements that could be that you might look as being foreshadowing, Beatty certainly seems to know a lot about people. Luke, I think when you were walking out the door on Tuesday, we're going, Millie's the one who's responsible for running over Clarice and all that kind of stuff. The fact that Beatty knows what's going on and has said that we've had our eye on them for quite some time, it does kind of start to maybe put the wheels in motion that maybe Beatty has some responsibility with the death. You don't know that for sure, but it certainly seems that that could kind of be a possibility to it. The big thing, though, would be overall picture. What happens if you're different? We find a way to not necessarily kill you, but at least silence you. And so Clarice's death would be a way in which that does happen. So you become silenced if you are different. Anything else to add on with Clarice? What's going on with rainwater?
It's a symbol for like sign of happiness or hope because it's the opposite of fire.
So rainwater, you could take a look, symbolic value, symbol of happiness, hope. Traditionally, along with those things, it also has another symbolic quality to it, and that would be rebirth. A lot of formal religions certainly use water as a means of kind of starting over, whether it be sacred baths that would take place in Hindu or Buddhist cultures. Christianity, you have baptism going through water, so you kind of have a rebirth that would start to happen. Who brings up this whole idea about water being like a fun thing, happiness? Well, no, like within the story.
What's when she's talking to mom, she's like, I like the way it feels. Or whatever.
Not Millie.
What's her name? I don't know her name. It's on my book.
So according to Clarice, because she likes to catch raindrops, she'll walk down the street, put her head back, open up her mouth, catch raindrops. So it's kind of very childlike. Childlike, or another term we would use, innocent. To catch raindrops. Initially, Guy goes, this is silly, this is stupid, why would you want to catch raindrops in your mouth? She says, I like the way that it tastes and all that kind of stuff. Once she runs away, or once she leaves, what does Guy do then at that point? He tilts his head back, catches raindrops. So you go to this rebirth. No, he does not become a completely new person, but you start to at least maybe see a change in Guy's perspective or point of view. So he is starting to maybe kind of act a little bit more like Clarice at that point and end up kind of catching raindrops. There's certainly some irony that would go along with this based on his career. He is a firefighter. His job is to start fires, and one of those ironic elements would be, what does water do to fire? Supposed to be able to put it out. So it's ironic that you would have a fireman like water or rain, because if his job is to start fires, that would be an element that would certainly be putting those things out. Any idea why Guy would be a good first name for a character?
Because it's
Easy to remember. Unlike Clarice, Luke struggles with that one.
yeah. Oh my God. What's the name guy?
Well, it really kind of could be any guy. So the idea that he doesn't have to be super special, doesn't have to have any kind of special characteristics or qualities about him, but if he is just a guy, the fact that he's starting to kind of change his viewpoint, that could happen with anyone. It doesn't have to be something super about him that's going to separate him from other folks. What do we know about firemen?
Fireman's office.
Okay. Going back how far? All right, so for number 6, and certainly this would be one where there is going to be a fair amount of irony that is going to be taking place. Since 1790, firemen have always started fires. Since 1790, have firemen always started fires?
No.
The answer to that's going to be no. So this is clearly false. What were the rules that we have on page 32? Other alarms. So you're going to burn swiftly, burn quickly, and then you come back and you wait for more. This originates, it says back in 1790. We get a historical figure who is credited with being the first fireman. According to this, within U.S. history, you have Ben Franklin. And the reason behind it was, what kind of books were we trying to keep out? Historical books, English influence books, trying to keep them from getting into the colonies. There is a bit of truth in that Ben Franklin, historically, he does establish the first fire company. Does it in Philadelphia. They establish a fire company. It is established well before 1790. 1790 is not the actual date, so that's false information that takes place. One of the things, and think about this from a historical perspective, since 1790 it originated, the whole purpose was to keep English literature out of the American colonies. What would be somewhat ironic or not true if you're trying to keep English literature out of the American colonies in 1790? Okay. What formally takes the American colonies, Tommy, listen up. What takes the American colonies and makes us United States of America? What document?
The Declaration of Independence.
Which is signed July the 4th, 1776. So the history of the United States goes back to 1776. So this whole idea about colonies going back to 1790, that would prove to be false too. In today's world, what would we call this? Besides just saying lies or false, the term we have would be fake news. Or, in some case, you have alternative facts, depending how you want to view those things. Why is it significant, though, if you have fake news? Or you have facts, quote-unquote facts, that are being believed? It can change the way that people think. And it changes. I don't have enough room to write the whole thing, but it changes history. If you take out every single text, every single book, if you are in history class and someone says something that you're not sure that it's right, how do you validate it? How do you look it up? You have a history textbook to view. In this case, if you're taking out all those forms of media, all the ideas of writing, you don't have a way to fact check, you don't have a way to argue, you don't have a way to rebel. So if you eliminate that whole idea, it makes it much easier for you to deceive, manipulate, persuade large groups of audience. Now you do have, what's an adage, don't believe everything that you here, don't believe everything that you read. Now it's turning into don't believe everything that you see on the internet or whatnot. But if you don't have any kind of text to verify things, it becomes much, much easier to change the way that people think, and you can kind of change the way that history works. Which, one of the themes that you're looking at within the book, Bradbury has a concern about if government can go too far. Well, if government is able to change the way that things happen, then certainly you have a little extra control within that government that he would not look at as being a good thing. What about our woman burning?
You said it showed how much people hated their society.
Being the woman?
Yeah.
Being one of them? Okay, so maybe not everybody. We don't know if it's the majority, but at least some people are dissatisfied with society. And some are dissatisfied to the point that they're willing to do what? In her case, she's willing to some are dissatisfied with society to the point that they will die for their beliefs. There's a term that we use to describe someone who's willing to die for a belief that they hold sacred. You're a martyr. We might say that saints are martyrs or that certain people would be martyrs, but she kind of comes off now as being a martyr because she's willing to die to go along with the books. She's not going to come out of the house. Couple things with this scene.
Oh, that's spelled weird.
M-A-R-T-Y-R, yeah.
No! Oh my God, I hate you.
Luke Jaquez. Don't worry about it. Zach, did you have a hand up?
No.
No? Okay. Couple things with her. Visually, how would she look when this is happening? House is going up in flames. What is she clutching? She's holding onto her books. What do the firefighters spray to start the fires? It's not water. Specifically kerosene. So they're spraying kerosene. So she is in the house. Kerosene is going to be around her. She is holding her books. She is holding something too when Guy is going, you don't want to do this, that is going to cause her to go up in flames. She is holding a match that is lit. So you have a woman
She's crazy.
holding a book. What is she doing with the match? She's holding it up. It's going to be a terrible picture. Holding a book, she has a match that is lit. Can you think of any depictions of a female holding a book with a match up in the air?
Statue of Liberty.
Stop. Stop.
Now, why would Bradbury like to make a connection with Statue of Liberty?
It shows freedom.
No, I think it's legitimate.
It shows freedom. Maybe
He
you're just too smart. You're smarter than
no,
Brad.
he does a lot of stuff with this that would kind of. What are things that we associate with Statue of Liberty?
Freedom.
Freedom,
New York.
an end to oppression, which is going to go along with freedom. Certainly, the whole idea that people will sacrifice themselves for freedom, make an ultimate sacrifice. So, if you're going certainly with the idea that she would be a martyr, that she's willing to sacrifice herself, this kind of heightens the quality that she's willing to stand up for. Specific reason why, yeah, I would say Bradbury is doing this. When she is ready to die and knows that this is basically going to happen, she gives a quote that certainly would not expect people to necessarily follow along with. She makes reference to, she says, Master Ridley. On page 37, we shall this day light such a candle by God's grace in England as I trust shall never be put out. Beatty's making reference to her. She is quoting a guy by the name of Bishop Ridley who is being burned alive at the stake. So in 1555, there's two bishops. One's Ridley, one is Latimer. They're being burned by Queen Mary for their religious beliefs because they're going against the Church of England. So she is going against the beliefs of society. She is being burned alive, now this by her own doing. But Ridley and Latimer would be considered martyrs. What she is doing is being considered a martyr, so she's going to sacrifice herself in fire, much the same way that Ridley and Latimer, bishops in the 1550s, would sacrifice themselves in fire. So to add an extra layer onto that, you put the depiction of her kind of being like Statue of Liberty. It sets her up as being a heroic character. This scene would certainly end up being considered, and I would make sure you do write this on your sheet, you would consider this a turning point. It would be at this point that Montague certainly starts to maybe reevaluate the way that he is going to go about things, and this is when you start to see him kind of maybe collect his own books and go against what a fireman would be expected to do at the time. Anyone remember the other names of the firefighters? You have Captain Beatty, and you got two other characters. You have a guy named Stoneman, and you have a guy named Black. You have two depictions where there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of humanity to them, that Black charred fire, and Stoneman, someone who simply would not care. What makes Guy different? He thinks, he listens, he thinks about things, which Clarice really starts to kind of mention early on within the story. So you start to see that Guy is not just a regular guy, but he is someone that kind of starts to separate himself from the rest of the pack. Tomorrow, we're going to do vocab quiz. After vocab quiz, we'll take a look at the seashell radios and move on from there with the other examples we have.
Right. There you go, my guy.